Where do you stand on cremation?
I'm not sure I have a position.
I'm for it. I wrote a poem. When I am dead, cremate me. That's how it begins. When I am dead, cremate me. What do you think of that for an opening line?
It's challenging.
Well, I'm a challenging sort of man. That's why people don't like me. I don't go along with the ordinary ways of thinking.
Then we are exactly alike. Another glass of brandy.
The question of why Oscar allowed himself to take up the challenge of the Marquis of Queensberry is extremely interesting. What I think actually happened was this. I think that Bosie was absolutely determined to get his father. He wanted revenge. There's hardly any more powerful emotion, particularly in somebody like that. And he dragged Oscar into the family quarrel. And I've seen this happen in life often, that people, outsiders, get drawn into this psychological whirlpool of unhappy families. And I think that's what happened to Oscar. I think that he got to a stage where he couldn't say no. I don't think he initiated the case. I think Bosie did.
Why did Oscar fall into Queensberry's trap, which is what it was? Queensberry wanted Oscar Wilde to sue him. He wanted to become such a nuisance that Wilde would sue. And it was, as Wilde called it, a terrible net that he got ensnared in. I think one of the reasons was that Bosie's older brother, Lord Drumlanrig, Francis Douglas, had apparently committed suicide on the eve of his wedding because there'd been a scandal in the making about his relationship with Lord Rosebery, who was Foreign Secretary and later to become Prime Minister of England. And Lord Rosebery was someone that Queensberry could not fight. He was too big, too powerful, though Queensberry loathed him. But that he did make his son and heir, Francis, feel dreadful about this relationship. He went around the place insulting Rosebery when Rosebery wasn't there, calling him that Jew, cur, sod. I mean, really horrible language. And Francis had an accident with a gun, which is usually a suicide, it must be said. And I think Wilde was genuinely concerned that Queensberry was dangerous and would cause the same thing in Bosie, would threaten Bosie's stability to such an extent that Bosie would either do something mad like kill his father, which is quite conceivable. He was perfectly capable of going around in the heat of the temper with a gun and shooting him, as he did threaten to do on many occasions.
Here's one for the Black Douglas. Bosie, for God's sake! And one for his liver, one for his light, one for his stinking rotten soul! Bosie! I'll save one for myself. My own father. He wants to kill me.
I committed to Stephen after our first meeting, and I never wavered from that choice. And the reasons were various, because it was not, oddly enough, although it seems a very obvious choice to people now, it wasn't an obvious choice for us in many senses, some practical and some for other reasons. The practical ones that Stephen was not very well known in film. He's done several cameos in some recognised films, but he's never led a film. And so it wasn't particularly convenient or easy to raise money on Stephen's name.
The financing was very complicated to put together. Ultimately, we had investment from Japan, Germany, the United States, as well as the UK, something like 8 different investors. But the whole thing wouldn't have worked were it not for the Arts Council's investment of lottery money. There's a new scheme under which money raised from the lottery is invested in films, and this has been the backbone of the wave of new British films now coming through. Wilde would not have been made without that investment.
So, you think you can play Oscar Wilde, do you? You said yourself. And without the absolute confidence in a director, without absolute confidence in everyone working around you, it would have been impossible. You have to trust the director's instincts on every shot, that when he says cut, print, move on to the next scene. You have to trust that the director can see every mannerism, every trick that you might employ, lazily or out of fear, and can iron it out of you and get precisely the thing that's needed for each moment.
And the giant's heart melted as he looked out. "How selfish I have been," he said. "Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that little boy on top of the tree, and I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground for ever and ever." He was really very sorry for what he had done.
I'm not sure that I do understand what went on in Oscar's mind, and I don't think one ever can. I think all one can say is that he certainly led, if not a double life, a kind of triple life in a way. That he was a public man with a public image. He was almost the template, the prototype of a modern celebrity in some ways. There were cartoons of him in Punch and similar magazines way before he'd ever written anything valuable or lasting, simply because of the way he was, the way he walked, the way he talked. So he had that side to him, but he also had the private family side as a husband and father. And he had the third side, which was a secret one, which was his life as a homosexual, as someone who had male lovers. And that was something, I don't know what kind of pressure there was on that. I think he had a self-destructive streak that almost made him long to be found out, which is something I can understand. I know that feeling. I can't imagine, I don't think any of us can really grasp what it meant when he was publicly tried like that. I mean, people quite literally, there are reports of people literally vomiting in the streets when they read the newspapers. That's how alien this whole idea was to them. They could not believe such things existed. And yet somehow, of course, inside they knew they did, because what disturbed them was that it somehow connected with their own desires or perhaps their own school experiences. None of that is any different to the way it was. But it was just untalked of. And when something is suddenly brought up to public notice, which has always been a dark secret, people react in very extraordinary ways.
I have fame. I have recognition. With 2 plays about to open in London. I may even have money. The world is at my command. Yet I can't command myself. I can't command my feelings for you.
If anybody seeing the film likes Oscar or values Oscar, the character of Oscar Wilde, enough in the film to read what he wrote, then I think they will discover that they are in the presence, as they turn every page, of a quite gigantic intellect and a quite monumental spirit, one of the greatest of his or any other age. And it's quite common in Germany or France or Russia to talk about Tolstoy, Dostoevsky and Wilde in the same breath.